Alright, what's going on guys? I've got another guide video coming up for the War Within. So just started playing recently, coming back to the game after a long little break, and what I want to do now is just basically run over talents, what's changed, what different things you need to do in your rotation, stuff like that, and also how I've started off, with my gear and stuff like that. Get you straight into the game, get you playing again, and just get into some arenas and win some games. So I'm going to try and do this all off in like one thing, probably chop it up a little bit in editing, but let's go for it with talents to start us off. So, talents have changed a lot since Dragonflight, so mainly around this area where things have moved. Grace period's now over here, one talent. We've got our old tier set down here with the reversion giving living flame, stuff like this. Got some changes over here with renewing blaze and source of magic swap places, so we no longer need to take a wasted talent with source of magic, that gets binned off. We're running the Chrono Warden, so Chrono Warden is way more overpowered than Flame Shaper. Flame Shaper is not even worth considering right now, which is sad because I wanted to run it, but we're running Chrono right now, and that's got some really, really OP abilities, so we'll cover a few of those in a bit. But what I want to talk about first is temporal compression, because this has always been in the game, but now it's a lot stronger. So the first thing is that it actually is buffed from last time. So I tracked my temporal compression up here with a weak aura. Whereas it used to reduce it by, I believe, right, someone correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this used to be 5% less time per stack, now it's 10%. So once you fully stack, you charge your empower spells incredibly fast. And then the next part why I want to talk about temporal compression is because we're running Spark of Insight, so after using a full temporal compression, we get an Essence Burst. As you guys will know from my other videos, if you've seen them, Essence Burst effectively allows you to cast spells for free. The other thing is, well, I say spells for free, Echo and Disintegrate. Disintegrate's free anyway, but Echo for free. So you increase your healing for free. Also now Essence Burst is going to increase the effectiveness of the next ability by 25%. So if we, let's see if we can get a proc quickly. If we are to have an Essence Burst, whereas a normal Echo would do 105% replicated healing, an Essence Burst Echo will now do 131% healing. So we're getting more throughput there. The other thing is with Chrono Warden, Echo can now also have 100% more effectiveness as well. So you can quickly see how we're stacking these effects to just get more HPS throughout the entire thing. Now, next thing about temporal compression is one, by having Chrono Flame instead of Living Flame is now half bronze, so it gives us a stack of temporal compression, whereas it used to just be a red spell which didn't do that. The other thing is our tier set is all based around it as well. So looking at tier set here, we've got, can I move that across? No, never mind. Looking at tier set, we've got Reversion's healing's increased by 10% and has a 50% chance to grant one additional stack of temporal compression. So if I get really lucky here, let's see. Nah, it didn't get lucky. But sometimes when you reversion, you'll get 2 stacks instead of 1, which means that you stack it quicker. And then the other thing is when we get 4 set, when we use temporal compression, look at this. Temporal compression increases the healing of your next empower spell by 10% per stack. That means we'll get 40% extra healing on our Dream Breath Hot if we cap out temporal compression. So my advice to you, if you weren't already, track temporal compression with some sort of weak aura or something like that. Any bronze spell gives you a stack, so that's time dilation, it's reversion, it's echo, it's chrono flame. I think tip the scales, rewind, even your blessing of the bronze. There's loads of things, so there's so many ways to get this, and then through doing that we can have more essence bursts. More essence burst means more damage through disintegrate, or it means more healing through echo. So overall we're stronger. Okay, so that basically covers temporal compression and why it's so important now that we move into the War Within. The next thing I want to talk about is how this then ties into empower spells and flow state. So this is my build, obviously. I actually run this more than that. I run Time of Need, which you just saw me take off when I'm playing solo shuffle or when I'm playing into setup comps, whereas I run Energy Loop by default because I like to be able to do the massive damage, especially when you couple it with Titan's Gift. You can get some really big damage on Disintegrate now. Anyway, this is the build I run by default. You'll notice a couple of things. So one, I don't take Stasis, and two, I'm taking Flow State. The reason I don't take Stasis is I think it's overrated. It's a really, really, really good spell, don't get me wrong, but now we've got, where is it? Over here. So each time you cast an Empower spell, Unstable Time Magic reduces its cooldown by up to 6 seconds, and we've got Flow State, which is going to give us 10% CDR after using the Empower spell. So if I cast, right, let's just do like a standard thing, you know, let's So we'd end up getting double Hots Up, we'd probably Verdant, Echo, and then Dream Breath. And then we're going to proc Flow State, we're going to get CDR instantly off Dream Breath. So now we're rolling a quicker cooldown due to Flow State, and we've reduced the cooldown already. Now, by the time Dream Breath's over, how long is actually left of the cooldown? And this is without proccing Flow State again. So we've only got 7 seconds of downtime there. Typically what you'd use Stasis for is to refresh your Dream Breath so that you kept your HOTS going. So, in my opinion, we don't need it anymore. And what that does is it allows us to take this path instead. If you were to take Stasis, you're probably looking at, you know, a build like this. Which, although it's fine, like, all that value I just spoke about in the first half of the video is now gone. So why not keep all of that value, you know? So we wanna keep that going. Spin off Stasis, boom. Okay, that's why I'm not running Stasis, basically. I think with how the build's changed, with Chrono Warden being a part of it, and also the talents moving around, and now we're taking Flow State, there's no need for Stasis. It does help. You can do things like store Stasis, and then pop it when you're in CC to help keep people alive. But I'm willing to take the risk right now, so that's my opinion on it. Anyway, Flow State only procs after you cast an Empower spell, so what you need to keep in mind is that you're not going to permanently have Flow State active. It's not a permanent 10% CDR reduction. Keep in mind it's also move speed and cast speed. But as you're rotating through your spells, and you know, we'll do a bit more rotation here, you know, put Dream Breath up. Right, we're now going to have 10 seconds of Flow State, so you know, we can mess around and do some stuff in that time. And then you can see it's getting kind of low, so we proc a Living Fire Breath, sorry, and now Flow State's ticking again. And we're just keeping that Flow State going. Now, you don't have to do this as a thing, but you'll find that as you're casting your spells, you'll probably naturally keep Flow State ticking over anyway, as long as you're rotating correctly. Now, some alternatives to this, if you don't want to run it, is you could run 1 point Flow State and maybe take the Spirit Bloom cooldown. Now that Spirit Bloom's really strong due to our hero talents here, so 1, Spirit Bloom now heals an additional 30% as a hot, and 2, Spirit Bloom gives us 3% haste per target hit up to 9%. So you want to do a big AoE Spirit Bloom now. In the past it wasn't so important, but we got that 1 tier set from I think Season 2 Dragonflight. We've also got another tier set here from Season 3 of Dragonflight, and we've got a tier set from Season 1 and 4 of Dragonflight. So all of our tier sets have been crammed into our kit now, and we're just really strong from it. Well, I don't even know what I'm talking about, guys, but Flow State and Power Spells, we're looking really good rotationally, and main thing about Spirit Bloom is make sure you do a big one. Obviously, that takes ages to cast, but like I was saying earlier, use your Temporal Compression, and then your Empower Spells are really quick, so there's no problems there. Right. Let's move on to the next part of why Chrono Warden is so overpowered, and that is this one right here, Temporal Burst. This is effectively Bloodlust when you press Tip the Scales. So, whereas Tip the Scales just used to give us an instant Fire Breath, now what it's going to do is it's going to give us the instant Fire Breath, then into loads of extra damage and healing throughput, because we've got so much haste. So, you know, we got 10 seconds left on the cooldown, but where you would normally have your stuff up and you'd set up early game, and then maybe you'd be like this, and then maybe you'd like run Oppressive Roar, Deep Breath, and then from this AoE, Tip the Scales, Fire Breath, and then do loads of damage. You've now also got this massive haste buff, and you can just put out so much throughput. You know, then we're going to drop an AoE Spirit Bloom, get another 9% haste, and you can see that my character's just absolutely juiced, and I'm doing so much damage. That's what I mean about the Disintegrate. Like, look at that. That's crazy. I missed my Fire Breath as well somehow, like a noob. But you see the example there. We've got so much utility and power coming out of these hero talents. And that's just simply why Flame Shaper is just not viable anymore. By the way, throwback, might cut and chop this into somewhere earlier, but we also have this one where Dream Breath can actually extend its duration now if it crits. So that's also another reason why I feel like we don't really need the stasis anymore. Anyway, so that's sort of covered all the changes. I'll link my talent build in the description. The only variations I make are these. So, Energy Loop, default, Time of Need. If you're against setup, that's something like a Rogue, maybe a Hunter, something that's going to lock you down for a long time and mean that your team could die in CC. That's when I take Time of Need. Also, Shuffle is so chaotic, and mana isn't really a part of Shuffle, that I like to take Time of Need as a default in Shuffle just for the sake of keeping my team alive. And you never really get much of a chance to cast Disintegrate in Shuffle, because people are just always dying. So that's just that. The other thing will be over this side, so this is where things will flex a bit, and typically you're looking at this and these two to flex around. So there's so many different use cases, and it's really hard for me to sum them all into one video. Walloping Blow is really nice against melees, and it to be able to slow people, keep them off your melees, stuff like that. Maybe you're against a Fist Weaver and you want to slow them, it's really nice for those situations. I run the extra damage as default because we're doing so much damage this season anyway, that by buffing that by 4%, you're getting a lot of value. But you may want to look to take magic damage reduction instead, maybe against an Affliction Lock or something like that, where this damage reduction is really useful. Then, you know, you're looking at things like maybe you want a shorter cooldown on one of your knockups, maybe you want the Empowered Root, that's quite useful, or I'm actually a big fan of Zephyr as well, so where you're against really heavy AoE classes, maybe like a Frost Death Knight or something like this, even like Warriors, Monks, when they pop their cooldowns, dropping a Zephyr can actually reduce a lot of damage. Demon Hunters is another one, so I like to sometimes factor Zephyr in, and now that we have the extra talent due to this being moved, it's quite easy to pick that up. But by default, I probably take this. Walloping Blow, super underrated, I don't see many other people taking it, but 70% slow on your knock is insane. You can knock someone down, and then literally like have them 70% slowed, they can't get back to their team. It's really, really brutal when you get that sort of combo, so that's great. Also, PvP talents, if you're playing against or with melees, I like Dreamwalker's Embrace. If you're playing 4 casters, probably looking at something like Dream Projection instead. There's loads of flexibility here and what you can take. You know, if you don't need a purge, you can maybe look at some different combos like the Afflock counter, which is where you take Time Stop and Dream Projection, you cast Dream Projection, and then you press Time Stop whilst in that animation, and you'll AoE dispel your team. So there's a few little things there that you can use, and I'm going to admit this is like a really chaotic guide, but I'm just going to info dump everything on you guys, and you can take from it what you want. I'll put some timestamps in, and we'll see where we go with that. So I think there's basically 2 more things for me to cover, and that's just a refresh on the basic healing rotation and what you want to be doing on Prez, and then we'll also look at my gear and how I've started off the season, and you guys can try and look to match that if you haven't already sorted it out. Right, rotation. The main thing is understanding your core spells of, let's bring up the spellbook. Our core spells are going to be Reversion, Dream Breath, Echo, Spirit Bloom, and Verdant Embrace, okay? So these are like your core healing spells, and you've also got Chrono Flames, but I want to talk about that after. Start of every game, you typically just want to get your hots up on your teammates, like this. That's going to put 1 on me, 2 on them, and then that's going to keep things rolling. You can then actually get a stack of Life Spark, giving you an instant Living Flame, primed and ready to go. But then once you've done that, you want a Verdant, Echo, Dream Breath to start your healing rotation, okay? So that's going to get big hots on your team, and it's also going to proc your Temporal Compression, giving you that free Essence Burst to maybe start getting your damage rolling. You can see from... I lagged out. That's so annoying. But you can see from doing that, I was able to get an Essence Burst proc, an Instant Living Flame proc. Now if I wanted to, that could have been a Disintegrate, instant tip the Scales Fire Breath, into Chrono Flame, into another Disintegrate. Maybe then I'm going to Deep Breath as well. You know, there's so much coming out just from that opener. And it can be really, really powerful. That's going to keep your team tipped up with hots whilst you're playing aggressive. And that's the key with Prez, is I don't want to be sat here going Echo, Reversion, Echo, Verdant, Echo, Dream Breath, okay, now Living Flame, now Spirit Bloom, now Echo, Reversion again. That's not how you play Prez, guys. Stop doing that, okay? Put up your hots, get them ticking over, keep your team healthy, maybe take a time dilation if they're taking burst to let your hots deal with the burst. And then you want to be playing aggressive, okay? So you want to be doing damage to the target. You can't just sit there and heal, because it's not going to work. And you might get some people in your solo shuffle lobby saying, bro, just heal while you're doing damage. But what they don't understand is if you don't do damage on Prez, you're pretty much wasting the spec. You can do so much. I've had games today where I've done more damage than my DPS, and it's crazy. So, you know, let's bring up some of this. Ready? Playing with the Jazz earlier. If you don't know Jazz, go check him out. But look at the damage, guys. I'm doing the same damage as my Shadow Priest. So, like, if you're not trying to do damage on Prez, you're really just not making the most of the spec. Okay? So, that's not the full rotation, but that's like the gist of it. Getting your hots up. dealing damage. Your HOTS being Echo, Reversion. Obviously watch the temporal compression. You want to try and get this topped up before you do. So then Verdant, Echo, Dream Breath. Right, that's going to be a big proc. Like I said, then we can look to be aggressive with that. And then you'll probably want to reapply Reversion, so Echo Reversion again. Always trying to get that Echo Reversion. That's also going to proc Golden Hour, so this is going to refresh them for 30%, not 15, because it's doubled. Loud car going by. 30% because it's doubled, so that's a big rewind on their damage taken recently. From this, you know, we're basically going to have temporal compression stacked back up again. And then something like a big AoE Spirit Bloom with the new buffs can be really powerful to just keep them going again. And if you do really need to top them, that's when you look for something like a Living Flame, or Chrono Flame rather, which is effectively just going to drop a big heal on them, but it's not something we want to prioritize. Now, Verdant Embrace, it's really important that you use Call of Ysera off the back of it. So Verdant's going to buff your next Dream Breath or your Living Flame. And pretty much every time you use a Dream Breath, it's a very expensive spell mana-wise, so you want to make sure it's buffed up with Verdant, because ultimately, by healing more efficiently and using your healing buffs, then you're going to spend less mana, and you're also going to be able to play more aggressive. If you're running Energy Loop, you're then regenerating your mana as well by playing aggressive. Living Flame Living Flame uses less mana when you hit an enemy, and Living Flame can then give you an Essence Burst proc to then filter back into healing or damage. Basically just improving your mana efficiency. So that's how you want to like do healing as a basis. And then there's other things you can do, like you've got Life Bind off of Verdant, and imagine this is like a mini Spirit Link totem. If I was to you know, put an Echo on this guy, and then is this person Horde? Nope. We got any Horde players around? Here we go. Horde player over here. There's a Life Bind on that person. There'll be a Life Bind on the dummy, and a Life Bind on me. And what that means is that when each of us receives healing, it's given to the other person as well. So if you've got HOTS on your whole team and then you triple Life Bind, you'll really just keep your team healthy, and it's insane how much value you can get out of that, and I don't see people using that enough. And that can also be comboed with spells like Commune, so then ramp up the Communion healing to insane levels. If you triple Life Bind Commune in an arena, you'll top your team, even in heavy damp. Like, you'll always top your team. It's insane. And you know, the same goes for triple Life Bind into Rewind as well. That's going to be huge healing. So if you ever look at using some sort of big healing spell, you want to triple Life Bind before that. Even things like sometimes I'll triple Life Bind, and when I jump into the fight with Verdant, I'll then pop Renewing Blaze, so any sort of cleave or AoE damage I take actually then gets redistributed back into my team as well. So it's a really effective way to just keep your team ticking up, because ultimately what you want to do when you're playing Prez is spend as little as time possible actually healing your team whilst keeping them healthy enough so that they don't feel scared, so that you can then do damage yourself and act as a second DPS or third DPS. So I hope that all makes sense, guys. That's pretty much Prez healing summed up. Just a quick one, you never really want to press Emerald Blossom. You could probably actually remove this from your action bar. I used to play a build in Dragonflight with Ouroboros, which is why I have it on my action bar, but you never really need it, and it's pretty much useless now. So that's, you know, for some of you thinking about that, that's not really a consideration. The other thing is make sure that you're utilizing Cauterizing Flame. So this dispels bleeds, poisons, curses, and diseases, and it heals the target when you do so. So if you're playing against something like a warrior, which has Thunderous Roar, that's a big cooldown for them, you can dispel that straight away. Same goes for like Assassination Rogues with Deathmark, you can dispel Deathmark, so you want to hold your Cauterizing Flame for those cooldowns. But then you'll have other classes like Shadow Priest who has Devouring Plague, and if there's no sort of big cooldown to dispel, you can look to dispel those diseases or curses from Warlocks, stuff like that, get rid of a full stack Agony. So there's little efficiencies, and a mistake I see people making a lot is they don't use Cauterizing Flame to get rid of the little stuff when there's not a big cooldown to watch out for. So that's pretty much everything rotationally. Time dilation, I think we've covered that before, but it's basically just a delay burst. It's important to note someone will still take that damage, it just delays damage, but what it does is it allows your HOTS to deal with big bursts. So, you know, if I was to put Echo Reversion, Echo Dream Breath on this person, maybe even Dream Projection if I'm running that, whilst their damage is being delayed, they're going to be taking a lot of HPS and just keeping topped up. The next thing is more of a playstyle aspect of Prez. Whilst sometimes you will want to play back in LOS and just get out of line of those spells, that CC and stuff like that, the general gist of things is you'll be playing really aggressive up in someone's face, and you'll be looking to make plays with like Oppressive Roar, Deep Breath, and doing big damn. Okay, so that's like a playstyle aspect. You know, there's so many benefits to playing on top of people with Prez. You've got your knock up, you've got your knock back, you've got your interrupt. All your spells are shorter range than other healers, so by being in the fight, you're generating an advantage for yourself, whilst generating a disadvantage for them. If you're out of the fight, you're generating an advantage for your enemy healer, which is not what you want to do. And obviously it's really important that you track CC spells like Polymorph or Cyclone, and you're trying to deny these as much as possible. So it's important to have, like, obviously the add-ons and stuff like that. I'm not a big add-on guide kind of guy because I just sort of follow other people. But you know, making sure you have Omni CD to track your team's kicks, so that you know when your team can't help you, and then helping yourself. You've got your interrupt, you've got your knock up, your knockback, like I just said, and we've got nullifying shroud as well to be able to immune some CC. So there's so many tools, and ultimately you can stop so much CC with those things. If you're running time stop, you could even time stop yourself. So there's loads to do there. Right. Cool, I think that's pretty much it in terms of gameplay, and you know, if you need to ask me any questions, just drop some in the comments. I think the final thing will just be going over gear. So when you win 4 arenas at the start of the season, you'll get gifted 9 conquest heraldries, which are used to craft gear. So I'll just go show you those quickly. You get gifted 9 of these. Now, 2 rings and an amulet can be made with those 9 things for 3 pieces of epic gear, which is going to give you a good kickstart. So I made 2 Algari competitors rings, one with haste, one with mastery to get a nice spread, and then I also made a haste amulet. Looking to boost up my haste right now. We have so many haste modifiers as well that I'm probably not going to go too much more into haste now. Sitting at that 15% is quite a nice level, I think, to deal with Prez this season, but I might try and get a bit closer to like 18 or 20. You can see after a Spirit Bloom, I'm going up to 26. If I tip the scales, I'm going to go to 63, which decays over time. But yeah, so that's how I started off. Then you'll get a bit of conquest from playing, which I bought a helmet and some shoulders because I like the look of the Mog, not going to lie. That's why I bought shoulders. Then you're going to get to 1.6 rating if possible, which will get you your second piece of tier. And then you're going to have 3 pieces of conquest, 2 of those being tier, and you've got your tier set. Then you've got war mode. So by getting the cap of bloody tokens, which I think is 1,350, I was able to get a couple pieces of gear. I just bought a cloak and a wrist, which just gives me a bit more item level again. And then finally, I crafted a weapon with the Ascendance embellishment, so that's Dark Moon Sigil Ascendance. And I crafted a waist with the Writhing Armor Banding embellishment, which doubles the effect of the Ascendance one. Now, this is probably going to get nerfed, so I've only made it with Honor gear, but I just want to get that early on in the season and just get that buff from the embellishments. Really nice to have. And then that pretty much sums up the gear for now. I've not really looked into enchants too much and stuff like that because my character's poor. Well, I made some gold recently selling bloodstones, but my character's pretty poor, so I haven't got gold to like blow on the expensive enchants. I'm just going to wait and see what happens. And that's pretty much me for now, so you know, there's things like weak auras I could share and stuff like that, but generally just get in my Discord, ask me questions, follow the stream, ask me questions there, comment on the YouTube videos, ask me questions there, and I pretty much always respond to my YouTube videos. So yeah, cheers guys, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you either in stream or on the next video. Peace.